This is tips for visiting Kennedy Space Center for just one day. So Kennedy Space Center is actually much bigger and there was a lot more things to do than I anticipated. It's kind of like if you visit like a zoo, like you could spend like, several hours there. It's not like going to just kind of like a one-off attraction or something. So starting off, let's look at some of the, actually really all of the exhibits that they have here. So first you'll come across the Rocket Garden. This is just an outdoor garden area that has some of these rockets here. They have the Heroes and Legends exhibit. You can see the stories of different astronauts that have flown in space. There is also a shuttle launch experience. It's a simulator that puts you in the pilot seat of a space shuttle launch, astronaut training experience. The Space Shuttle Atlantis, so this is where you'll go into it, and then this is the actual thing. They also have the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station here. It's a historic site. There are interactive exhibits inside the museum. There's like this slide, then also like this tunnel to crawl through. It's very good, really good for like kids and adults. There are things to keep the kids like entertained, but then also like educational and like interesting things for like adults too. They also have a mission control room, which actually looks quite a bit like the actual mission control room that they built at Mission Space in Epcot, because it is meant to look real. That was the very first place I ever worked at Disney, so that's why that jumped out at me. I'm like, oh, this looks, just like that room. Launch simulation. So there's all these little pads here. These are all different triggers, and you basically have to step on the different colored spots, and they have like electric bolts. And once you build up enough in this meter that is up here, then it will simulate a launch experience. And like everyone around, because everyone was like looking around like, why are they like just randomly just walking like in circles or like on random steps? And then when this started going off, everyone's like, oh, that's why. This was like at the height of COVID, where you had to have a mask to be allowed to go anywhere, hence all the masks in all the photos. They also have a Mars rover exhibit, which is a futuristic model of what they want to do for Mars rovers. They also have the world's largest NASA space shop here. It's a really nice gift shop. Something that JP and I do is we get a Christmas ornament everywhere that we travel. That's like our one souvenir. So it decorates our Christmas tree every year, and we get a souvenir, so it kills two birds with one stone. And so just some additional tips. That's kind of a little more what this post is about than just kind of showing you what's there. I do recommend planning ahead. There is a lot to see, so just look in advance to see if there's anything like additional that you want to add on, or make sure that you do, especially if you're traveling with like a group. People have different interests. Here's kind of what parts of the entrance look like. The entrance really like seems like you're going to a theme park. Like you have the big ball here like you would at like Universal and you have like this big like toll entrance like all the theme parks. Buying tickets in advance is always recommended. You can buy them online, you can get them at the visitor center, but sometimes some days they do sell out, especially when like rocket launches are going on in the area or something like that. So it's always good to just have an advance rather than just showing up and trying to do something, because it's possible to be turned away. Arriving early is also great if you want to come like right as they open. That way you get to do things before it can be more crowded, and it just makes it a little more of an enjoyable experience if you're able to go early. I definitely recommend wearing comfortable shoes. It's quite a bit of walking if you go around to everything, so gym shoes would be ideal. And also bring sunscreen since it is Florida. Bring a camera for sure, so your phone, make sure it's fully charged, or if you have an actual separate camera, that way you can take your group photos or document interesting things. And then also check the launch schedule before you go, because you might be able to see a launch. They get canceled and delayed a lot due to like weather or technical issues. So just because something's on the schedule doesn't mean it's 100% going to happen. It's probably more likely that it is going to get changed than actually happening. And just some ideas for hotels that are close to the area to stay nearby. There's a Hyatt Place there in Titusville, and there's also a Courtyard by Marriott that are right there. Those are going to be like your two closest that are like good quality and still affordable hotels. Some frequently asked questions. So is there anything to do for free? Everything here, you do have to have the admission ticket to get in. And then once you are in, there are some things that are add-ons, but the vast majority of what you'll do once you have an admission ticket is included with that. How much time do you need to see the Kennedy Space Center? If you're gonna just kind of like, you just want to see the exhibits and just kind of get a feel for everything, then I would plan at least 2 to 3 hours. But if you're gonna have like kids that want to play, or if you want to do like an add-on, like you can actually like meet some astronauts, then maybe even plan like a full day there, like the entire operating hours. So kind of the ultimate question, is it worth visiting? It kind of depends on if you're interested in it and like what your budget is. It can be kind of pricey since it's kind of up there with visiting like an amusement park or like zoo or aquarium or something. It's not the cheapest activity, but there is a lot of really cool stuff that is there, and it is kind of it's a pretty popular place to go to. So like the last time that I checked, admission's like $75. So it's pricey, but it has some interesting things, and if that is just not in your budget, then don't stretch your budget for something that you can't do. But if it's something that you're interested, then definitely go for it. So some pros for visiting, if you're kind of figuring out like, is it worth taking time in your trip to add this to your itinerary? It's very educational. You get to see the space shuttle Atlantis, which is popular. You can tour the launch pads. You can meet an astronaut. You can do the space shuttle simulator and see a rocket launch. So those would be all pretty cool things that you don't get to do in a typical day. The cons would really just be that it is expensive. It can be very busy depending on when you're going. Some of the exhibits feel a little like outdated, and then some of the add-ons too are quite expensive. But so it just kind of depends on like your level of interest. If you could not care less about it, then it just wouldn't make sense to like splurge on it. But if it sounds like it'd be interesting to you and you can fit it into your budget and your schedule, then definitely go for it. And just some extra information, some more fun things that you can do around Florida that I have posts about. I have a St. Augustine day trip itinerary. I also have a kind of like things to do around Florida's Treasure Coast, which is like Vero Beach, Port St. Lucie kind of area. I also have a A1A road trip itinerary. So this goes down the entire East Coast, like through all the beach towns, like not on the highway. You can take it all the way to Key West, which we took it from St. Augustine all the way down. And then Biscayne National Park in Miami, you have to book like a sailing excursion through them because the whole park is just like underwater. But ours included snorkeling and stand-up paddleboarding and a picnic lunch on one of the keys. And I also have a Key West day trip itinerary and an Everglades itinerary. For this, you take an airboat tour like this, and they take you around the park. And then I also have some things to do at Disney that like most people just don't even know are there or like never get to experience. And then other than that, I have, links here to book your tickets in advance. And then I also have a 1-week Florida road trip itinerary that connects all of those things together that I mentioned, including the Kennedy Space Center. And I also have this free guide on things that are free in Florida. So if you find that this is just out of your price range and you are looking for something else to fill your time on a Florida trip, these are all free things to do.